think you've done outstanding work in making a difference at a time when I think we're really in a crisis. Mr. Gelin, I think you kind of touched on the potential crossroads we're facing right now. And I don't know if I'm as confident as you are that the Trump administration is going to do the right thing, but I guess we can only hope that it comes out that way. But one thought I did have about that particular piece, I know contempt is a process that some of the judges seem to be lining up, and I assume they're going to target lawyers or lower level officials, maybe in the Department of Justice, for contempt proceedings. I'm curious about your thoughts on that. Also curious about bar counsel. I think a lot of these lawyers are doing and saying things in court that they know are false, basically lying to judges in court. I'm a former trial lawyer myself, and in fact, I've appeared in front of these judges that are doing these cases right now, and it's astonishing to me that they're saying and doing these things and thinking they can get away with it. But I'd be curious for your thoughts, or any of you that have practiced, especially in these courts, what your take is.
Yeah, I think you're hitting it right. I think in the beginning, when I was in court on these cases, what I saw is the judges feeling like, well, let's give them a little bit of time and a little bit of rope and see what's going on. But I think, for example, Judge Boasberg has given them so much time to do the right thing, and finally has just said, I've given you months now to do the right thing and you're not, and got to the end of his rope and said, I'm finding probable cause for criminal contempt. We'll see. The government has, of course, appealed it. And I think you're hitting on something also about the relationship between the lawyers and the administration. One thing I'm finding is that it's difficult to know what the lawyers actually know when they're walking into court. What I think the administration is doing is purposely keeping the lawyers in the dark so they can say whatever they need to say in court without actually knowing the truth, and that is very dangerous. So I think,
you had the other aspect of that. I think it was in Kilmar's case, actually, where the lawyer who acknowledged that the administration had made a mistake and basically got fired right after that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let me move on real quick because I don't want to run out of time. The contract, MOU, whatever they're calling it, between the United States and El Salvador, nobody's gotten it apparently, but I'm curious as to what efforts are being made in the courts. I would love for us to just file a subpoena here, but the Republicans control that power. They're in the majority in both houses. Are there efforts in the courts to try and get that, and do we have a shot at getting them relatively soon?
So we are getting material under seal only for attorneys' eyes only, which is a problem. So I am not free to tell you what I have seen or know. I suspect it's more than what people understand has been out there, but unfortunately it's all been under seal. I think that, you asked what can you all do. I think one of the things you all ought to do is get those agreements, for sure. I mean, there's absolutely no reason that Congress should not see those agreements. We are sending people to, again, it's not a detention center. It's more than a prison. It really is a gulag. You ought to see what we're paying for with taxpayer dollars.
I agree. Last question. I see I'm running out of time. I was just in El Salvador again. I went to try and see Kilmar. They blocked that. But one of the things that sort of stood out to me, and we had a chance to actually talk to some of the family members of Venezuelans as well as people from El Salvador, mothers whose sons frequently, but sometimes daughters, have just been disappeared, and they have never been able to track down where they are unless, one, sadly, the body was sent back to the family after he had perished in prison. But the question I had here, and we sort of touched on this earlier, was what explanation has the Trump administration given for indefinitely jailing people who have, I think many of the Venezuelans, as a matter of fact, were here in the United States legally, didn't commit any offenses, civil or criminal, in the United States, no offenses in El Salvador, no offenses in Venezuela, and sending them to, we're calling it a gulag, but it's, maybe Guantanamo combined with some of these gulags. It's probably one of the worst scenarios you can imagine. What explanation are they giving?
So they are saying, well, these are alien enemies. But of course, they haven't proven it, which is exactly why they're taking people out of immigration proceedings where they could have proven it. They're claiming they're keeping the American public safe, but as all the reporting is coming out, people did not have criminal convictions. They were not gang members. And so there's a lot of rhetoric, but very little proof.
Thank you, and I yield back.